What's up, everybody? And welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me as always. And I'm a little late to the party, but I did finally get around to seeing Dune this past weekend. The movie based on the 1965 novel by Frank Herbert. That's Tremors. Sarlacc Pit. That's SpongeBob. Yeah, that one. Anyways, without further ado, oh, I know it's bad. Let's get into it. This movie was literally 5 years in the making, as Legendary Entertainment bought the rights all the way back in November of 2016, and a few months later, Denis Villeneuve signed on to direct this movie.
You Americans always butcher the French language.
Now, since this is still a relatively new movie, I'm not going to be going into the specific story beats like I do with my series reviews, as I don't want to spoil any major plot points or details about this movie. So I'm just going to be giving a very general synopsis and then kind of diving right into my thoughts. So with that being said, Dune tells the story of Paul Atreides, a son of a royal family who travels to the planet Arrakis. Arrakis is this dangerous desert planet, and it's the only known source of spice. And in this universe, spice isn't used for cooking, and it's not even one of the ingredients to make the Powerpuff Girls. Spice is the most important substance in the world. It is used to extend human vitality, and it's even a critical resource needed for interstellar travel. Now, once Paul and his family get to the planet Arrakis, in the sake of spoilers, let's just say things go bad.
This is not going to go the way you think.
And while all this is going on, Paul is also struggling with these dreams and premonitions he's having of what he believes to be future events, such as some of his loved ones dying, and meeting this mysterious hooded girl. Now, going into this, I was pretty confident that Villeneuve was gonna be a good choice for this movie, given his history of sci-fi films that he's directed. And I'm happy to report, Dune is pretty awesome. Everything about this movie just feels epic. Between the acting performances we get, the score and the sound design, the visuals, the cinematography, and the story, I was completely immersed right from the opening scene. Let's start with the acting. All you have to do is look at the poster, and you can see that this movie is just loaded with talent. You have Timothée Chalamet here as our protagonist, Paul Atreides, and I have to say, this is up there with Beautiful Boy as probably my favorite performance by him. You have Oscar Isaac, you have Josh Brolin, you have Jason Momoa, you have Rebecca Ferguson, you have Javier Bardem, you have Zendaya, and the list goes on. This movie is just incredibly stacked. And I've seen movies like this with a stacked cast where you somehow still leave very disappointed. That's right, movie 43. But this is not one of those instances. Every actor here brings it, and there is not one performance that I felt was out of place or took me out of the movie, even by the lesser known actors. A big part of my immersion with movies is, of course, how believable the acting and the characters are, and this movie gets an A+ in that department. Next up is gonna be the visual style of this movie. This film is absolutely gorgeous. Like, every scene looks like it could have been taken out of a painting. And although I saw this my first time in theaters, which I recommend to anybody, if you haven't seen this movie, go see it in theaters. That is the best way to take in this experience. But even after my theater viewing, I went home on HBO Max, and I just had to pause some of these scenes, as this is just simply one of the best looking films I've ever seen. Third is gonna be the score. This movie is composed by Hans Zimmer, and of course he's a very respected name in the industry. I mean, the man has composed music for over 150 films, including The Lion King, The Dark Knight trilogy, Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy, Gladiator, Interstellar, Inception, and just too many to sit here and name on this video. And it's also worth noting that he previously worked with Villeneuve in Blade Runner 2049. And while Dune was being made, Christopher Nolan actually approached Hans Zimmer about scoring his film Tenet, but Hans instead opted to do Dune, citing his love for the book. And in my opinion, the score and the sound design of a movie can add just as much as the visuals, the script, and even the acting performances. And Zimmer, to nobody's surprise, absolutely crushes it here and really helps add to the immersion of Dune. This movie also does an excellent job with its world building, while at the same time not overwhelming new viewers. Like, for example, I personally didn't know anything about Dune, but I would say within like the first half hour, I had pretty much all of the backlogged information I felt like I needed to enjoy this journey. I just feel like some books turned movie absolutely front load you with all this information, like to the point where you're so overwhelmed you feel like you have to take notes to understand the universe. And I just felt like Dune struck this perfect balance where you can enjoy this movie regardless of what you know going into it. And then lastly, I just really like the dynamics in this movie. I really believed the script and the story they were telling, and everybody just felt like they truly cared about each other. I really felt that Paul's mother and father truly cared about him. I feel like Paul really had a connection with Duncan, which is this soldier played by Jason Momoa.
A boy.
Hey, Duncan, can I trust you with something?
Yes, always. You know that. Hey, you. Put on some muscle?
I did?
No.
And I just loved the chemistry in this movie. And as far as my negatives go, I really only have two bad things to say about this movie. And the first would be that there was so much going on at this movie at some times that I feel like some of these characters weren't fleshed out as well as they could have been, which I understand we didn't have much time to spend with each character. But the only problem with that is when certain events happen to certain characters, no spoilers, it didn't impact me as much as I felt it could have or should have. So I wish we would have got a little more time with some of these characters that I really enjoyed. And then my second negative is, this isn't really a bad thing per se, but I feel like the second half of the movie wasn't quite as strong as the first half. And it wasn't bad by any stretch. The first half just felt smoother. The pacing was just much better in the first half, and it was kind of doing its own thing. Whereas when we get into the second half, more specifically the third and final act of this movie, it just felt more predictable and kind of formulaic. It had me a little less excited for part 2 that's coming than my excitement levels were in the first half of the movie. And one more little note I wanted to add in here, and I've heard other people say this, so I know I'm not breaking new ground with this remark, but this truly does feel kind of like Star Wars meets Game of Thrones. You have these different elemental planets like Hoth in Star Wars. You have space travel between the planets, and you have a lot of space politics like the prequels.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
You have these allegiances like the houses in Game of Thrones. You have these acts of betrayal, as featured heavily in both of these properties. And you even have the main antagonist in this movie referred to as the Emperor. And I'm not saying it helps or hurts the movie. I'm just saying it was worth mentioning. I mean, technically, Dune was published 12 years before Star Wars came out. So if anything, I think George Lucas owes a little bit of his success to Frank Herbert. So overall, I really enjoyed Dune. It is absolutely epic in scale. You get these fantastic acting performances across the board. You have a great score and sound design, and you have absolutely gorgeous visuals. And it's a hero's journey if there ever was one. And remember, this is only a part 1 of a 2-movie series, so don't expect necessarily a nice, neat, completed story by the end of this movie. I'm gonna give Dune 7.5 giant sandworms out of 10. But that's gonna do it for my review of 2021's Dune. Please let me know what you thought of this movie. Did it live up to this enormous hype that was built for it? Or did this movie disappoint you in a lot of ways? Let me know in the comments your personal opinion on it. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing right over here so you don't miss any future content. And to see other reviews or ranking lists on my channel, you can check out a few of those right over here on this side. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.